Welcome to the Unriveted podcast, where we talk about technology initiatives such as artificial intelligence, digital transformation, and people. This episode is brought to you in part by Fast CTO. And with that, we have a guest, John, and our guest is Chanukya Patnaik, founder and CEO of AI Planet. And Chanukya, welcome to the podcast. We love having you here. Why don't you start off with a introduction of how you got started?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Martin, and thanks, John, for the invitation. And hi, everyone. I'm
Yeah.
Chanukya. I'm the founder of AI Planet. And talking back about our inception story, so it was back in 2019, 2020, where I was still working with my previous startup, where we were primarily working with financial services. And that's where I saw this hard problem where while AI is really cool, while AI data science is really cool, but when it comes to the ground reality, more than 80-90% of the projects used to fail to drive business value. And this particular problem has stuck to my mind. And I was at that time, like, and I was looking for my own entrepreneurial journey where I wanted to do something meaningful and drive some meaningful impact to the world. So that's where, like, I was proactively looking for problems, and I ended up with this. And I thought, why not we ponder more about why AI projects or data science projects are failing to drive impact, whereas in reality, the technology itself is really cool and has the potential to not just solve many business problems, but also many more social problems out there, right? So that's how it all started, and we try to understand a bit more on why this is happening, and then we realized there is a huge gap on the awareness, and on the other side we saw there are a lot of broken pieces in the AI development cycle, and that's how we ended up starting AI Planet with a purpose to make AI accessible to everyone. So
Well, thanks for being here. Like Martin said, I'll be the first one to pepper you with questions, so hopefully that's okay. But I want to. I have a couple of questions, but I want to touch on one that you kind of mentioned here that brought it to mind before I get to the other ones. You said that a lot of businesses were not really seeing value in AI, even though obviously we're told in the news and the media, wherever you read about technology, that AI is the next best
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
right? Uh, so, I'm interested in your conversations that you've had with clients or potential clients or people that you know in your circle. What was the cause? What do you think was hindering businesses from seeing that kind of impact from AI? Is it one thing, several things, or just kind of
No,
explain
absolutely. I
that?
mean, I think when I talk about our again, I mean, like, I'll probably touch base on the inception journey. At that point in time, generative AI was not a hype thing. Generative AI, large language models, were not so much. While they are existing, but they were not so much popular at that time because ChatGPT was not there at that time. So back in the days, I think, I mean, like, what was happening was basically people were able to build some models or build some use cases around a particular problem statement. But the thing is, they never used to get to the production. I mean, they never really used to drive value to the business in terms of the ROI, or even, for example, especially in the financial services, some of the projects, though they are really good due to the regulatory pressure, or due to the non-regulatory compliance or other issues, they used to fail. Okay, that was back in the days. Now, when we
Mhm.
fast forward now, when we talk about some of the AI projects, especially with the generative AI, large language models, one of the biggest roadblocks is data privacy and security. Okay, and apart
Mhm.
from that, when we talk about large language models, they're super expensive, especially when you're operating at a large scale. The moment, like, you start hitting more and more API calls, it costs a lot on the GPUs on the cloud side of things, and that's where, when we talk about all these GPUs, they're super expensive. They're not like simple CPUs which cost few $100s per server right now. And, like, when we talk about any of the large language model out there, they run on the specific GPU called A100, which costs almost, like, when you're buying 8 GPUs, it costs close to $32,000 a month. So that's super expensive. And yeah, I mean, you need to have deep pockets to be able to run secure and private AI on your own data centers, on your private cloud. So two big reasons. ROI is one reason, but also the major reason that is blocking enterprises is data privacy and security at the moment when we talk about it. So
Um, kind of following up on that, and I'll keep my mouth shut. So, so I can tell Martin is just ready to go. But I want one more follow up question to that. So a good point there is security, which I think is not one that I've heard as a top of the list item. Usually, it's like maybe in the top
yeah,
three. And I think the number one is just, and again, you tell me from your experience too, because obviously your platform is designed specifically with security in mind and having like locally hosted
yeah.
LLM stacks that perform a particular business function. But what have you seen in terms of just the expectations of when people think generative AI or anything with AI in it, like it used to be machine learning, and before machine learning, it was data science. Before data science, it was big data, and then
Yeah.
it was total quality management or something like that. I don't know. You tell me, Martin. You probably know all the trends that have gone back and seen them come and go,
Yeah.
but we'll get to that in a second. What is about like the expectations? Do you think that people have expectations of these products that are far beyond like what they're actually capable of, and then they get overhyped, and then people, lose interest because it doesn't live
Yeah.
up to it?
I mean, that's a good point you brought up, and that also mentions that I missed a very important point. So one of the biggest setbacks when we look at it in like using it in an enterprise setup is enterprises look for reliability and they look for certainty in any product, right? And that's where when we talk about some of the large language models or generative AI models, they hallucinate. They they are very
Mm-hmm.
undeterministic, so they end up hallucinating, and that's where it is becoming really tough to build reliable LLM or generative AI powered products, which can be reasonable as well as like which can be much more reliable by enterprise. Because whenever we go to enterprise, they say one thing: yes, I mean like we need data privacy, security, all these things. Yes, that is needed, but at the same time, we need reliability. I mean like in the sense that even if I don't get an answer from an LLM, that's okay. But I don't want to get a wrong answer. I need whatever responses that are thrown by LLMs or generative AI should be factual. Okay. And because of its
Mm-hmm.
hallucinating nature, they end up throwing anything random. So again, I mean, like, addressing to your point, there are multiple reasons which are making it hit the roadblocks, right? And that's where like one of the biggest reasons as I see today, which is not making it too lucrative for big enterprises, is the certainty. I mean like due to the hallucinations and non-factuality responses of the LLMs. That is one of the major points. And the other thing is the ROI is a big issue, right? Even though you're investing so much, it is not giving that use case that can drive you that ROI. And then the third thing is obviously the compliance, other things, data privacy, security. So these are some of the things, but also would love to know from your perspective on what you're hearing in the market, and love to learn from that side as well. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting, and thank you for your insights here. I think if it's okay, I'd love to kind of spin in another direction, just as like a tickler for our audience to learn more about you and your
Yeah.
company. I was really fascinated that you have an AI marketplace, and knowing that a lot of companies will go back to the open source and try to build it themselves, but you have a marketplace already established. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your marketplace and maybe some of the models that you see as like these are your big winners that you feel that you're happy you made the investment and you're seeing your own
Yeah,
ROI?
no, absolutely. So again, when we talk about the marketplace, that was a place where we wanted some of our community members as well as some of our technology partners and our internal teams to push their own state of the art AI models, generative AI models, and also the applications around it. Right. So it's not just limited to the models, but also the applications around it. When I talk about I'll probably brief about it. But but when I talk about the models, it's just uh, any classic machine learning model or a large language model. That's what I mean. And when I talk about the
Mm-hmm.
applications, it doesn't just take the input and give you the output, but it also does little more on the data pre-processing and other things. For example, when I talk about it, I talk about something like a document search and chat. Okay. And here in this case, you can always use something like an LLM for some of the operations, but to be able to build an application on top of 10,000 documents, where you have 10,000 documents on science, and you want to search for a very specific information about photosynthesis and its use cases, right? In that case,
Mm-hmm.
technically, if you have to build an application, then obviously you need to have a component that would basically load all this 10,000 documents. And whenever a user is asking for a particular question, here in this case, it is photosynthesis and its use cases. Whenever this question is being asked, basically the system should query for the relevant information in these 10,000 documents and fetch those top 5 or top 10 results, and then pass it to the large
Mm-hmm.
language model. And the large language model will take all this top 5 results, try to write a fine-tuned answer, and give it back to the user. So this entire orchestration part is nothing but an application. I'm just referring it as an AI application. So when we built marketplace, we wanted to list all the models as well as any application and end-to-end application that would make it easy for companies to plug and play, right? Rather than they building each and every component, they can readily come to the marketplace and get plug and play application directly for them, or a model, whichever they want to run. They can directly get it, and this they would get it without worrying about the data engineering processes or the MLOps processes, which is too difficult for a small enterprise or even small medium enterprise. Even for large enterprises, it's really a hectic task to reliably scale any large language model in today's time. And that's where, we take care of that hurdle of reliably scaling these systems at a large scale. And you also get different a hub of production grade models as well as applications in one spot. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. And the use case of examining, let's say, 10,000 documents is a common
Yeah.
use case. And it's a step
Mm-hmm.
and repeat. Just pick your domain. I love you brought up photosynthesis because without it, none of us would be living here today. You know that. So you picked a good one. I mean, at least you didn't have to talk about silicon. You just photosynthesis, you went to the heart of all living matter. Why humans can exist. So that's awesome. Um, John, I'm sure you sitting back there waiting for something less photosynthesized for, to ask. I'll release my end of the stage.
No, no. I mean, I work with generative AI, LLM solutions, and in my line of work. So I'm looking at them every day. I'm working with clients, talking to third parties. Same, in a not in exactly the same way that you are, but in the same way as from the outside looking in, which is why I asked the questions about the perceptions. So another question that's not specific to AI Planet, but maybe just kind of your opinion. We keep building more and more language models. Google just released
Yeah.
Gemini to much fanfare, although it might be a little sleepy time. As it's almost comparable or just GPT-4 on several benchmarks. That aside, the point is these models keep growing and growing in
Yeah.
size, right? We see like GPT, ChatGPT, I think it was 175 billion trainable parameters. GPT-4 is, as far as I know, still undisclosed, although the rumors say it's trillions of tunable parameters. So, what is your opinion on where the next step is in the evolution of maybe not just generative AI, or we'll just say AI in general, because nowadays AI and LLMs, we kind of use those
Yeah.
interchangeably. Is it just going to be building larger and larger models with more trainable parameters? Or is it going to have to be like a new innovation in the model
Right.
itself?
Yeah.
Or else, how far can we go building like 10 trillion parameter models? I mean, there's got to be some point where that becomes
Yeah.
untenable. But what do you think? What's your
Yeah.
opinion on where we should go
Oh, yeah. I mean,
next?
this is a good question, and actually, I think also an easier one to answer. Actually, so I think the next way ahead right now. I mean, like people are betting on multi models right now. We have seen a big advancement in let's say text to text or text to image, image to text. These kind of we have seen a lot more advancement, and the future would be more like a multi-model where you give input as a natural language, which is a text, and then you end up getting a blog article which has image, text, a GIF, probably a audio or video. I mean, we never know. I mean, that's where the future is. I mean, that is one of the areas is multi models, and the other area is agents. While building,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, building large models itself is really hard, but building products on top of large models is even more harder. And that's where I think agents or even the other orchestration tools like vector databases, embeddings, and other things, right? Basically, the retrieval augmented generation and all these things are booming up. That's where I think there will be a lot more advancement on how to build reliable products on top of LLMs. That's where I think one of the biggest advancement that we are going to see is on the agents, autonomous agents, particularly. And apart from that, there are two other areas which we might end up seeing. One is obviously the LLMs or generative AI on edge, which is not yet disrupted. We will soon see. And that's where I would also say there will be specialized large language models, which are not as huge as we are seeing today. I think they are
Mm-hmm.
going to be stringed very down without compromising on the quality of the outputs, right? Even for example, we did some research
Mm-hmm.
where we quantized several large language models to a smaller size which can run on smaller compute without compromising on the
Mm-hmm.
quality. So that's where we will end up seeing smaller specialized models in especially to cater to the edge space, generative AI on edge, or even we never know. I mean, for the privacy and security part, we can also end up running these models on our devices or on our mobile phone or anywhere, right? And
Mm-hmm.
while I still believe the larger models will be there, but at the same time there will be more prominence on the specialized smaller models. That is going to be a different vertical altogether that we are going to see. But yeah, I mean that's in a nutshell. I spoke about 4 or 5 items, but I think that's where the future is heading at the moment.
Perfect. Makes
This
sense.
this is awesome. As we wrap up here, Chunkya, I like to ask if I was just be in your chair, your eyes, your mind, and you were to start a business today. What do you think you might do? And going into the next business based on what you've learned today.
Right. I think if I have to give that piece of advice, I would probably bet really hard on two things. One is um, obviously on the autonomous agent, and the second thing is the generative AI on edge. These are the two areas which are
Mm-hmm.
yet to see the disruption. I think that's where there is some sweet spot, and I think I'm not saying you would have an early mover advantage, but I think there is a lot of scope for improvement as well as still the research is going on, and there are undisrupted markets yet. So yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm going to close this up with a wrap here, and I want to say on behalf of our Unriveted crew, John and I, we really appreciated you being on the show. Shine off here in a moment, but I'll just say thanks for being on Unriveted.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here, and thank you so much, Martin, and thank you so much, John. Yeah, take care.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.